13 on your sideline. Sponsored by Davenport University. Get where the world is going.
Hey guys, my name is Matt Gard and I am the producer of 13 on your sidelines. It is week 8 of the high school football season when this is being recorded. So that means the playoffs are coming up and a lot of people have questions about the playoff point system and whether their team will make the playoffs. So I had a very special guest join me for a sit-down conversation about, how that playoff system works and some of the teams that we're going to be looking at who may or may not make the playoffs. Hope you enjoy this conversation. Start off by just introducing our viewers to you, who you are, and what you do in high school football.
Yeah, so my name's Cannon Dean. I'm the founder of Goose Poop. Goose Poop is a site really to predict how well your team's going to do in qualifying for the Michigan High School State Football Playoffs. So we have a tool called the Playoff Wizard on there, which lets you forecast your team's playoff odds. Any team in the state, any 11-man team in the state, you can select, hey, we're going to win this game and this game, and the app will spit out whether you're going to make the playoffs or not. So we'll model it and say, hey, yep, you're likely to make it or likely to not. We also predict every game using our computer model. So we set a point spread and an over-under total and a probability of winning. You can see that on a separate tab. It's called our prediction site. All of the content's free. You can check it out. We try to update the site weekly. It was updated on Sunday. It'll be updated this next Sunday, and it'll be updated on Saturday before Selection Sunday as well. And so really fun site. Yeah.
I've got to ask, and as I'm sure people are wondering, where did the name Goose Poop come from?
So I love high school football. That love was really inspired by my dad. My dad's a high school football coach, and his nickname for me as a kid was Goose or Goose Poop. And so when I was first making the Playoff Wizard 5 years ago, I didn't know what to call it. And so I said, all right, I'm just gonna give it my nickname. And funny enough, the guy who was the inspiration for the site, Snooze to You, I think that was how he thought about naming his site too. I think Snooze was his high school, one of his nicknames growing up or something, I think is what he told me. It's kind of it's, yeah.
I love it. It's certainly a memorable name. People aren't going to forget that. You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. So if I would recommend to anybody trying to name something, name it after bird feces and you'll be all set.
That's a good rule of thumb. So break down, we talked a little bit about, we want to make this good for the casual fan and good for the hardcore fan. So start off with the casual fan, I have had people both in our newsroom who are not connected to the sports department and people out in the community ask me, how do the playoffs get decided? And there's a somewhat complex mathematical formula that goes into it. Can you just break down at a base level what some of the things the MHSAA takes into account, what they look for when they're deciding who makes the playoffs?
Yeah, so the MHSAA playoffs, they start week 10. Half of all teams make it. So there's about 500 Michigan high school football teams, and exactly 256 make it. It used to be if you won 6 games, you'd be in, and then there'd be some bubble teams with 5 wins, and those teams would slip in. Now we've evolved since 2021 to a much more complicated system, which tries to suss out strength of schedule. We moved to that system because a lot of people would try to schedule an easy 6 wins, and that just led to scheduling issues. So we moved to this system. It's much better, in my opinion. I'm not going to explain kind of all of the math behind it, but basically what it tries to suss out is, hey, are you beating good teams? So you get benefit for beating teams with lots of wins. And then also, and this is probably the most controversial portion of it, are you playing large schools? So schools with high enrollment. And you actually get benefit for playing those schools even if you win or lose. So it's advantageous for you to just play big schools. And so that's the playoff point formula. There's a lot of math behind it, but basically teams that play big schools and win are going to be in. Teams that play small schools and lose will not be in. And that's an oversimplification, but that's sort of the directional correctness of how to qualify. What it ends up doing is if you win, 7 games or more, you'll automatically be in. I don't think in the 4 years of the system we've had anybody with less than 7 wins not qualify, anyone in the state. We almost had that last year with Marquette, but Marquette didn't win their 7th game. They went 6-3 and missed the playoffs still. So I think that would have been the case for the first time last year. But we win 7 and in. And then I don't think we've had anyone lose 2 games or less and make it. I do think we've had a 3-6 team make it. And so if you're in that band of 7-3 wins, you're likely eligible. And hopefully you've played good opponents in that band or 6-3 wins, that band. And hopefully you played good opponents, got wins, and they were against bigger schools. And if you're kind of south on all of those, like you haven't played teams that have won a lot and they're smaller schools, you'll probably be out of luck.
Tell me a little bit more about the playoff wizard. What is your background and how is that something that you came up with?
Well, so I came up with it as an extension of my favorite website, which is Snooze to You. I had that growing up. I was a high school football player in Michigan, and I always loved going on his predictions. And even after I was a high school football player, I liked looking at them. And so I was using Snooze to You, and I was developing some apps professionally. And I was like, hey, this would be really fun if I made an extension of Snooze's website, really, which let you forecast your own Snooze to You. So Snooze kind of takes steady state and looks at, hey, this is all the teams today, and I'm going to map it out. And I wanted to say, well, what if I forecast out how my favorite team's going to do? What's the map going to look like? And that's really what Goose Poop, the website, the playoff wizard, lets you do.
So we're gonna dive into that, and it's important for anybody watching this later to know that this is recorded on October 14th, 2025. So we are heading in to week 8, meaning 2 weeks left of the high school football season. And we don't want to spend like an incredible amount of time talking about each division, but there are a few scenarios that I find interesting in each division. So we'll just go, if you don't mind, from 1 to 7 because we don't have any teams currently in Division 8 that stand a very good chance of making it. So for our purposes, let's just say 1 through 7.
Yes,
We'll start with 1. You've got East Kentwood, Hudsonville, Rockford, and Granville pretty much locked in. I want to hit on Granville real quick. It kind of surprised me a little bit that Granville is a lock at this point. They're sitting at 4-3. They have, I believe, Hudsonville and East Kentwood left, not necessarily in that order. And they just haven't been the same team since Tank Terry, 2-time 13 on your sidelines MVP of the year, got injured middle of the season. And so you started with them being just one of the absolute behemoths in the state, taking Detroit Cass Tech to overtime. And now they're, I don't want to say in free fall a little bit, but they're certainly struggling. So I just want to hit on them real quick. What was it about them that you look at them and you say, yeah, even though they're struggling right now and their last 2 games are going to be really, really tough, I think they're a lock.
Yeah, so we have them modeled as losing the next 2 games, so we don't expect them to win either way. But the nice thing is they're playing 2 very large schools to finish the year, so their playoff point formula is going to get the benefit of just playing East Kentwood and playing Hudsonville, both D1 schools. If you look at their schedule, they played all large schools. Caledonia, I'm not sure if they're D1 or D2 this year, but it's still like the only Caledonia and Muskegon are the only kind of fringe teams that float between D3, D2, D1. Everybody else is straight up D1. And so that's a very nice schedule, very advantageous in the playoff point formula to let yourself qualify. The second thing I'd add is they already have 4 wins. And those 4 wins, a lot of them come against these larger opponents, and 4 and 5 teams make it. They do. And so the way the math's just shaking out is this year Granville looks to be they've already done enough work to qualify themselves for the playoffs.
And I just really want to stress this for our viewers. You look at the OK Red, and you might see, I believe West Ottawa and Grand Haven have both won 2 games each. And you might look at that and be like, well, those are bad teams. But in reality, the OK Red is just full of these massive squads that at any given time could have several Division I prospects on it. So don't I would say to our viewers, don't assume that an OK Red team is a bad team just because their record doesn't reflect it, because they are playing the best talent in the state, you know? Would you agree with that?
I couldn't agree more. I think it's one of the tougher leagues in the state. Certainly this year could contend for being the toughest. Uh, we have three of the top five D1 teams ranked inside the top, ranked from the OK Red: East Kentwood, Hudsonville, and Rockford. So if you head to our prediction site, you'll see that. And that leaves out playoff qualifiers like Granville and Jenison and West Ottawa, all with chances of making the playoffs still. So I couldn't agree more. It's a very tough league, and you'll see that in the scores reflected, right? Hudsonville and East Kentwood just went down to the wire last weekend. The Rockford and Hudsonville game was an excellent game. I believe that was down to the wire as well. And East Kentwood and Rockford was a one touchdown game as well. So
I want to touch on some of those bubble teams that you talked about. Right now, it looks like Jenison is at number 30 in the MHSAA playoff points. So if the season ended today, in other words, the top 32 teams make it. So if the season ended today, they would be in. They've got a 70% chance to make it according to your formula. They've got West Ottawa and Caledonia left. Those should be interesting. Caledonia at number 33 and West Ottawa at number 39. Now, even though Caledonia, by the MHSAA's playoff points rankings, is just outside at number 33, they've got Rockford left and they've got Jenison. Why such a long shot at only 5% for Caledonia to make the field of 32?
I think the way the math is shaking out on Caledonia is they need 2 wins, and they've got basically a coin flip odds to beat Jenison. Should be an excellent game, and they've got much longer odds against Rockford in their final game, and so they need to win out is what I'm seeing in the math right now, and that essentially equates to 5% odds of them winning out, and so that's why Caledonia has such long odds. Or that's West Ottawa. Sorry, I just gave you West Ottawa's projection.
They
Apologize.
both play Rockford, though. So I think what you're saying could translate for both.
They have twin schedules, yeah. And so the same applies for Caledonia and West Ottawa. They basically have identical situations right now. Is they both need to win out. They both have winnable games against Jenison, by no means a lock. That's going to be a dogfight for them. And the Rockford game, they're going to have longer odds. We assign them longer odds. I think if you look at the results, you would agree that the odds are longer. So that's why they have tougher chances. Jenison on the flip side finishes with 2 winnable games. I think they finished with West Ottawa and Caledonia themselves.
Yep.
And so we're saying, look, if Jenison just wins one of those, they're probably going to be the team that makes the playoffs of those three. So that's kind of the way the math shakes out. And so yeah.
And how cool is it from a fan perspective? Jenison hasn't made the playoffs since 2018, and I'm not counting 2020, the COVID year where everybody made it. Not a football power by any means, but I covered one of their games earlier in the season. They were 2-0 after a win against Forest Hills Northern, and the student section was chanting "football school, football school." So for them to have a chance to make the playoffs, and again, like you said, against West Ottawa and Caledonia, 2 really winnable games. How big for that community to have a shot to play with the big boys?
Oh, incredible. And I'm so happy for them. You want to, as a football fan generally, you want to see the wealth spread. And Coach Lucas over there is in his second year. You're seeing the fruits of their labor, and they're knocking on the edge of the playoffs. So congrats to them. Hopefully they finish strong.
Very good. We moved to Division Two. It looks like you guys have Muskegon and Byron Center as locks and Mona Shores as very likely. They had the win over Forest Hills Northern this past week, may have saved their season. Forest Hills Northern, on the other hand, they're now fighting for their playoff lives at Byron Center, at Northview. Two very tough games for them. I do want to talk about Northview a little bit more in depth, though. They started off the season as one of the better looking teams, and still like very fun to watch. But they have fallen back a little bit. A loss to East Grand Rapids, a loss to Thornapple Kellogg. They are currently at number 26 in the MHSAA playoff point standings. You have them at a 67% chance to make the playoffs, with Grand Rapids Catholic Central left, undefeated team, and a Forest Hills Northern team that is fighting for their playoff life. So how do you see Northview's fate shaking out here?
Yeah, so Northview and Northern are really intertwined. Northern has much longer odds than Northview. Northview needs to win one of their next two to qualify, is what the math is saying. Northern needs to win both. And interestingly enough, they're going to play each other in week 9. So that could be a very interesting game. You know, theoretically, if Northern beats Byron Center and Northview loses to Catholic Central this week, we could be going into a week 9 game that is essentially a week 0 of the playoffs, right? Winner plays the next week, loser will not be playing the next week.
I believe we have a few of those coming up, those sort of play-in games later on down this schedule. Let's move to Division 3. Looks like Lowell is locked in, along with Kennewa Hills, East Grand Rapids, Zeeland West, Cedar Springs, Hastings, and Thornapple Kellogg is very, very likely. Shout out to the Trojans. They're another team that, over the last few years has really struggled, but seem to have figured it out. On the bubble, we've got Coopersville, Fruitport, and Forest Hills Central. Forest Hills Central, very long odds, wrapping up at Zeeland East and East Grand Rapids. Fruitport, I think they've got a nice shot at Holland and at Hopkins, both winnable games for Fruitport, but they've had a few weeks, especially this last week against Godwin Heights, where they really had a tremendous lead and then choked it away and lost in the last second. I want to focus a little bit more on Coopersville. Right now, they are the first one out in the MHSAA playoff point standings at number 33. You've got them basically a coin flip to make the playoffs. They've got Big Rapids, which is an absolute juggernaut, and at Cedar Springs, which is a very tough game. But as we saw this past week with their game against Kennewa Hills, they can play with teams like that.
Yeah, so it's really a quirk of the math on Coopersville. We're not assigning them much of a chance to beat Big Rapids. Whether that's accurate or not is really just the way our computer model ratings work. So if you disagree with us and think Coopersville is going to win against Big Rapids, then they actually have much better odds than a coin flip, I would say. But right now we're giving them about a 7% chance against Big Rapids. And so really what it's saying is, look, assuming that happens, which again is an assumption, if you beat Cedar, you're in, and it's going to be a much tighter game against Cedar. And so that's sort of how the math's shaking out. I think they actually have like a slightly, no, I think that's exactly right. So they need to win one of the next two, either beat Big Rapids or beat Cedar.
Very good. I want to sort of not skim by, but just go into briefly Division 4 and Division 5. I'll run down those because it looks like the teams that are in are pretty much a lock, or they have a very good chance, and the teams that are on the bubble have a very small chance. So we'll go through this quickly. Division 4, Big Rapids, Ludington. By the way, really a good odds. You mentioned Snooze. He has them as a week 1 playoff game. What a matchup that would be. Unity Christian in there, Portland in there, South Christian. South Christian, after they looked like they might be on their deathbed, won the last 2 weeks and fought their way back into it. Godwin Heights is a lock. Spring Lake and Holland Christian, very likely in Division 4. Still with the chance, but not a very good chance. Sparta, Forest Hills Eastern, Hamilton. And skipping to Division 5, Catholic Central is a lock. West Catholic, Whitehall, Oak Ridge, Tri-County, and then Hopkins and Kellogg'sville, both very likely. On the bubble, Orchard View and Comstock Park, but not a very good chance. So we go to Division 6, and this is the one I was talking about, a possible play-in game. This is very interesting. So in Division 6, Belding and Kent City are in. Montague is likely. And then it looks like the two bubble teams we have are Central Montcalm and Hart, who just happen to be playing in week 9. So you gotta love to see that. Central Montcalm, of course, was in our 13 on your sidelines game of the week this past week against Kent City. That one for the CSAA Silver Championship. It looks like their schedule might be hurting them a little bit, because they are a 5-2 team, but they've got a couple of winless teams on their schedule. When you look at Division 6, Central Montcalm and Hart playing in week 9, that's an exciting matchup.
I agree. I agree with your analysis that it certainly could be a play-in game if Central Montcalm loses to Chip Hills this weekend. And I expect Hart to beat Hesperia. Those two could be playing for a spot. Hart is traditionally a victim of their schedule. They're a larger school playing in a smaller school league, so they kind of are a case example of the playoff point formula kind of making things harder on a team, right? If you're a larger school playing in a smaller school league, it's going to penalize you. So Hart typically has to have more wins than expected to make the playoffs, or more wins than your average team to make the playoffs. And so yeah, you might see that play out. Central Montcalm and Hart kind of squaring off in that final game. Winner will go. Hart needs to win out to make the playoffs. Central Montcalm can get in by just winning one of their next two. And there's a scenario which I'm not sure of what that scenario is, where they lose both those and I think could still make it in. But that's a very slim odds. So you should really think about it as, hey, CM needs to win one of the next two. Hart needs to win both.
And if you're a Hart fan and you are upset by that constant math problem with playing smaller schools, they are going to flip-flop in the West Michigan Conference with Manistee starting in the 26-27 school year. So Manistee will go to the smaller Rivers division. Hart will move up to the bigger Lakes division. And so if Hart keeps playing at the level that they're playing at, they have been playing at the last 2-3 years, that problem could sort itself out, and it might be a little more feasible for the Pirates to make the playoffs in the future. One more division I want to talk to you about, that is Division 7. We've got Pewamo Westphalia and North Muskegon locked in. We've got Saranac and Shelby very likely to make the playoffs. And then there's Ravenna. As of today, number 32, the last team in the MHSAA playoff point standings. They end the year with 2 tough games at home against Oak Ridge this coming week, and then at Montague in week 9. What do you make of the Bulldogs' chances?
So it's 40% chance is what we've got them at. That's because they have 20% chance to win in each of their next 2 games. So they'll be an underdog in both. They need to win just one of them. And so there's an 80% chance they lose the first game. There's an 80% chance they lose the second game. The odds that you lose both are about 60%. So the inverse of that, we're doing a lot of math publicly, but that's their playoff odds. They need to win at least one. They'll be about a 2-touchdown underdog against both opponents. So, yeah, just need a little luck.
I love how much better at math you are than me. I can already tell. Journalism is not the career you get into because you're good at math. I can tell you that. While I've got you, I mentioned nobody in Division 8. Muskegon Catholic fell off. Saugatuck fell off a little bit. So it doesn't look like any area teams from Division 8, at least in the Grand Rapids, Kent, Ottawa, Muskegon area, are going to be making it. But anything you wanted to touch on before I let you go that we haven't already touched on?
No, it just if you want to take a look at these numbers yourself and kind of poke through our math, just head to our website. It's goosepoop.io. Everything's free, so you can just check it out yourself and kind of go through the math. That's always better to kind of sit with it and look at it than having me explain it to you. So
And you guys do like a statewide sort of YouTube video every week too, right?
that's correct. You can also check out our summary of these stats, which would be very similar to Matt and I's conversation today on YouTube. Just type in Goose Poop, and you'll see my brother and I's kind of summary of our website. So.
So if you are not from the West Michigan area and you want a bigger picture, or if you're just a nerd like us and you want to know the bigger picture anyway, check that out. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me today.
No, thanks for having me, Matt. This is great. So appreciate it.